Tonight on Chimstock Africa, my guest is Oyewole Toriola, an accountant and the CFO of Pivotius Limited. Toriola shares with me about his encounter with Jesus that not only took him from a professed atheist to becoming a child of God, but also brought the love of his life, his wife, into his life. Tonight on Chimstock Africa. Hi there, and welcome to this segment of your show. Like I told you in the introduction, my guest today is Oyewole Toriola. He's the CFO of Pivot Energy Services. And you're welcome to the show, Wole.
Thank you very much, Jim.
It's so good to have you.
Same here. It's nice meeting you.
I'm the extrovert-ish type of person out there. It's good to sit with people like you, very calm.
Yeah, I'm the opposite.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to talk about your testimony, your journey. And you're today the CFO of an energy company, and God has brought you to where you are today.
Yeah.
But you met the Lord very early in life when you were in high school.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Thank you very much, Shi. So I was born into a Christian family, and one of my few memories of my mom, because I lost her when I was about 5 years old. But one of the few memories of my mom that I recollect is her teaching us memory verse. I still recollect Acts 1:8, that and you shall receive power when the Holy Ghost has come upon you, and you shall be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria. I still remember that our teaching us that. So I grew up in a Christian home, and everything was good. We were very active, my siblings and I, in church and all that. My pastor was a very charismatic man, and then he was involved in some unpleasant activities, basically fraud. And so this is somebody that I looked up to so much. To me, it was like the right-hand man of God, As young as I was, it was a shock. It was a real shock. And it happened around those times when I started asking questions, Not that they told me. I was actually outside watching my dad's car when the pastor, he had come to our house to see my dad earlier that day, and the discussion got heated. So my dad had asked him to come outside with him. So they were talking. I was watching the car. Not that they told me. I heard him clearly telling my dad that he had refunded all the money he collected. So why didn't they reinstate him? He was talking angrily. But he was suspended, and then basically he left the church and took some members with him. And then some of these members, we are friends, of course, came back and started telling us that they lied against him. They set him up because he was a fast-rising pastor in the ministry. So it was, as a young man, looking at...
How old were you?
I was in my, should be around 11, 12.
Okay, continue.
Around 13.
Looking at what was going on?
Yeah, I didn't have anybody to really break it down for me. And I felt like, all these things is sham. And from there, I was like, no, this thing is not real. It's just a sham. I became rebellious. My dad, I had to go to church because my dad forced us to go to church and all that. But as much as I could, I would run back. I won't go to church with everybody, run back home, or go to church very late. Usually we used to have Sunday school, then the main service. So I won't turn up at Sunday school, show up when the service is almost over, just so that my dad will see that I had come to church and he won't be so angry. This continued for a while, to the extent that at school, I started telling people that there's no God. All these things are sham. But in all this, I didn't have that peace, And then two things happened that God used to bring me back. Okay, so a certain teacher joined the church, Mrs. Akimbo, and said to take an interest in me. So anytime I showed up late at the Sunday school, she would ask, Wole, why were you late? Well, why are you late? I didn't send anybody that time, so I won't answer. Then she would say, we won't move from here until you answer.
Wow.
And I'll be on my feet, you'll be standing there looking at me, and everybody in the class will be looking at me. So forcing me to, I just had to give up one excuse or the other. If I didn't come to church, she would come to this house to look for me. And so that forced me to avoid that embarrassment, to want to come to church. And then the other thing about her is that she made the classes more interesting for me. And I found myself beginning to take an interest again and to participate in the Sunday school. Then the second day that happened, that was around senior secondary school 1. So that was the 4th year of the high school. And a teacher in my class, my Greek teacher, he would teach us, but beyond teaching us, he would talk to us about life. And this guy said that he's not a Christian, he's not a Muslim, he doesn't follow any religion, but every day he wakes up, he prays to God because he knows there's God. So that touched me. And I sort of started praying that God, I know, okay, you are there, probably. But can you please show me the right way? Because this person says this other one says that. Can you just guide me and show me the right way? I kept praying that prayer. No. And then there was a crusade in our area. And my dad forced me, along with my siblings, to go for that crusade. It was in June, I think 1992 or 93. I can't remember the exact year now. And at the crusade, of course, I went angry because I didn't want to go. I didn't know what happened. Sometimes during the service, I just felt it's difficult for me to explain. I just felt like there is this big, huge, mighty person right there in front of me. I was telling me, yes, you've been asking for me. Here I am. And it was overwhelming. It was at that point that I actually gave my life to Christ and surrendered to him. So I was born in church. I really didn't know God by myself. I knew him as a proxy through my pastor. But at that point was when I actually surrendered and got to know God. And from there, I started growing. And today, everybody can deny God. I can't. Because it's not about what somebody tells me. It's what I've experienced in my life. It's having been able to talk to him, having talked to me. I know he's real. I know I'm in his will. So
that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And this was a preparation for you for the tough times you were going to face as you moved into university. Yes. Tell us about that.
Thank you. So that's an interesting story. So my family, we were not well off, but at least we had food on our table. My dad was working with one of the biggest newspaper organizations in Nigeria then. And out of the blues, he was sacked, okay? There was a redundancy. And that was just as I was about entering the university. To make matters worse, his benefits were not paid on time, and eventually when it was going to be paid, they were paying him in bits and pieces. Of course, the company too was struggling. But that meant when I went to the university, I didn't have the type of financial support I required. But I had to go. So I started I was in the University of Ibadan. My first year, 100 level, was probably the worst year of my life because there was nothing at all.
When you
no
say
food.
Nothing, you mean?
I didn't have money. I didn't have anything. No food. I had to register for courses. I didn't have money. Okay, so it was very bad. So what then happened, 2 friends and I, also freshers, we just went into a kitchen, put a padlock on the kitchen, and moved in. It was war with the students on that floor who were meant to be using the kitchen, But most students cook in their rooms or on their balcony. So we moved in, and then we got arrested by the hall warden, asked us to move out or we faced rustication. but there was nowhere. So we were desperate. There was nowhere for us to go. So we stayed in there. Interestingly, one of the guys is a medical doctor in the US now. And so we started living, we were living in the kitchen. From the kitchen, go for lectures and come back there. And then we didn't have food. So what I used to do then, during the lecture, I would start just gisting with my friends. I asked for 5 naira to buy biscuits. And then I would take the 5 naira, rush there. My fellowship president stayed in a hall called Independence Hall. So I would run to Independence Hall, to his room. On my way, I would stop at the buttery, buy gari, that's cassava cakes, 2 naira, that's a tin cup. And then sugar, this 2 naira 50 kobo. I know that my change is always remaining 50 kobo with the guy at the buttery. I'll go to my president's room and take gari. And then in the evening, I would go from one room to another until around 7:30. But I find somebody who has just finished cooking, who is about to eat, and I will join them to eat. Sometimes I won't be anybody, and I'll sleep hungry like that. I was probably one of the poorest, if not the poorest student in my class. And so to eat was a problem, not to talk of having a change of clothes or any other thing. I remember an incident when I was very hungry that night. I had moved around, and then I bumped into this friend of mine, a classmate, and I asked him for 5, 10 naira. The guy said he didn't have money, and I left. I was still wondering how I was going to survive the night. And then this guy ran after me and said, hold on, but I have food. I said, oh. And so he gave me a tube of yam and some beans. No, the fact that I could remember what he gave me and that incident showed you how that was to me. Years later, when I asked him, he couldn't remember. His name is Salem. That's his nickname. He couldn't remember the incidents, but I was the one in pain that night, and I could remember that incident. So 100 level was like that from, but just very tough. My matriculation, another story, at Trenchard Hall, I wasn't allowed to enter to join my other freshers because I couldn't afford 300 naira for a matriculation gown. So I had to go up to the gallery where the old students were, who have just come to witness the event. And I was with the old students, and I was looking at my fellow freshers looking all beautiful in their gowns. And taking the oath.
And you were with the crowd?
I was with the crowd because I couldn't afford the gown. So, but God helped me because I was doing well in my studies despite the struggles. And a lot of my classmates saw that. So my 200 level, I had gone back to the kitchen. A classmate came to call me that, come and squat with me. Because he was going to learn how I study, how those things. And then some other classmates started coming. They bring food for me to teach them. So they were paying me with food as I was teaching them. Some will buy the handouts. They will buy for themselves. They will buy for me so that I could teach them. So there were instances where I got to get more than one handout. And 300 level, things just started getting better for me. But at those times, I couldn't go home, except during the holidays, because there was really nothing at home. I knew they were struggling as well. So there were times when I stayed back in school and did manual work. There was a time they were renovating the halls of residence. I joined the, call them bricklayers, carrying all these things, just to earn some additional money. But, I didn't allow those things to show on my face, and as much as possible, I tried to do my work, study, and live my life, okay? But it was a tough time, all the way to my graduation.
But the wonderful thing is that how did you, in spite of this, come out with the first class?
I would say God favored me because
even a normal time, without all this pressure, to come out with the first class is exceptional.
Yeah.
But to have all this kind of psychological thing.
Yeah. So I would say God favored me because I had this aptitude to pick up things very easily in class. There were instances where I was not in class, they would teach them, and then they won't understand. And my classmates, I remember this particular incident that I'm telling about now. My classmate came to me with the notes that she took in class and gave it to me. I looked at it. I said, oh, okay. And she started crying. I was like, what happened? She said she was in class. She had struggled with this thing over and over. And in a few minutes, I looked at it and I said, okay. I was about to start explaining to her. I didn't know how to answer that, but I was able to explain to her. So that was one. The other bit of it was all this pressure also served as motivation, because I knew that there was nothing to go back home to. So I told myself, though before coming to UI, I told myself that I was going to come out with the first class, and I believed it. In fact, till I graduated, I didn't really know where 2-1 started from. I just knew you must make a GP of 6.0 minimum to be a first class, and that was all I cared about. So the pressure was also motivation, and God helped me that as I finished school, I got a job straight away, and my story changed.
Let's talk about that, getting a job, because you were very active in the Christian fellowship on campus.
Yes.
In the midst of all this struggling with making ends meet, you were also involved with your student fellowship. And
Yes.
Talk about the last fellowship, the Sent Forth.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So I was part of the outgoing ESCO, and then on the day of the handover, the new president came up at the fellowship and immediately was sworn in. The first prayer point he led was that yes, the fellowship needed some musical instruments. So the first prayer point he led was that everybody should pray that God should raise up helpers for the fellowship so that they could donate money for the fellowship to buy those items. It wasn't my wisdom or anything. I didn't know where it came from. Immediately that prayer came and everybody started praying. I just raised up my hand and said, Lord, I'm available, use me. That was my own prayer. So as everybody was praying, in fact, they were actually all praying for me. Because after that, I submitted my project in September, came back to Lagos in October. In November, I got a letter to come and resume on December 1st, full-time work.
Did you apply for the job?
They came to school, so it was a recruitment
drive. Okay.
Drive, yeah. And from my faculty, out of everybody that applied, I was the only one that was selected. And I started that job even before my service year. And from that to another job, and my career just took off like that.
And what happened to that? God help me, use me to answer this prayer.
Yeah, I almost forgot. So I was able to buy the instrument.
With your first salary?
Not with my first salary even. So, because my first salary was not a lot. So, but I was able to put that together and buy the instrument for the fellowship. Yes.
And buy everything they needed?
Not everything, the particular instrument
they were looking for.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so your career took off from there?
Yes.
So you went from one stage to the other,
yes,
and got to a point where you became a CFO,
yes,
in companies. At what stage did you land the space of a CFO in the first company?
Okay, so the first company I became a CFO of that should be in 2015 or 16. I can't remember the exact year now, but it's a manufacturing company, and it's probably the company that I got in the most practical experience from, because it was a troubled company that I became a CFO of. But since then, I've been CFO of other companies, and I've also grown.
And you've gone from one to the other.
Yes.
Handling some very difficult tasks and some difficult spaces.
Yes.
How have you navigated it with your focus on excellence, and at the same time, CFOs are always the ones that gather the most money, sit on the most money. And how have you been able to navigate it in terms of someone who wants to do a good work and glorify God?
Okay, so for me, it's I'm an ambassador. always see myself as a Christ ambassador. So it's really being, you say, being in charge of the money is really not a big deal, no? When people know your stand, and that's very key, when people know your stand, they won't bring any sort of unethical stuff to you, except people who don't know. And those you put in their places very fast.
So
very fast.
people everywhere you went, you were such that people knew what you stood for.
In fact, in this company where I was the first place I became a CFO, the CEO later asked me if I was a pastor, that she has always assumed I was a pastor. I said, no, I'm not a pastor, just I'm an ambassador of Christ. And everywhere I am, I have to rep Christ.
How do you understand that repping Christ in the workplace? How do you work it out?
Okay. So, the Bible says that we are the light of the world. And that light is not really needed where there's
so
brightness.
much light like this, okay?
You are most effective where there's darkness, okay? And fine, I'm not a pastor, but in leading teams, where I'm able to evangelize to them, I do. Where I'm able to challenge them, I do. And then leading by example in terms of being ethical, in terms of, I can say it proudly, I've never taken a penny. I've not even been, and it may sound strange, it doesn't even cross my mind, okay? And I can say it boldly because nobody can say I'm lying, okay? And so, living as a model, being ethical, knowing that if I do this thing, then it's not just me that will be affected, but other people who have been looking up to me, who have been seeing Christ in me, just like my childhood pastor fall affected me wrongly. I won't want to be that to somebody else. Yes.
Thinking back at that old case.
Yes.
That's so wonderful. You know what, Wale, we have asked your wife, Lola, to join us because I want to talk about your marriage journey. And just for the last few minutes before we end today, Lola, you're welcome.
Thank you, Judy. It's so good to be here, and I'm very happy to be here.
Your presence makes him look better.
Oh, really? That's good.
You know what I like about your story is you talked about the woman who loved you and loved you to Christ, the Mrs. Akimbo, and we were touched by that when you were talking about it. A woman who gave you unconditional love and finally made you, when you were around 14 or 15, to surrender to Christ. And it turns out she didn't stop in loving you. She did more than that. Lola, what's your relationship with that woman that loved him to Christ when he was 14 years old?
All right, thank you. Mrs. Akimbo is actually my mother. And she's a Christian, I must say. And one of our duties is to ensure that all our daughters are Christians. So we go to church. You dare not say you're not going to church. You go to Sunday school. She's a Sunday school teacher. And she's a teacher. She teaches us the Bible verses. You pray every time, you pray every night, and you go to church every Sunday.
Wow. Was it through her you met him?
I met him in church in Sunday school.
Okay, that same Sunday school.
Yes.
So when did you people know this is the person? For you, when did you know, talking to Lolana, when did you know this is the person?
That was years later.
How old were you then?
I was about 26. I was 13 in Sunday school when we met.
So that's 13 years after?
13 years after.
So Wale, when did you know it was her?
So I've always had a crush on her.
Especially because of the role her mother played in your life.
But I didn't know it was her until closer to that 13 years later as well. I kept a tab on her.
Sure he did.
Yeah, but when the opportunity came.
So how did you know?
I was convinced. I prayed about it. And I was convinced. Beyond me praying about it, I have a friend who is like a brother to me that we pray together a lot. His name is Toby. And when I was not sure, I'd spoken to Toby as well to please pray with me. And the day I got the confirmation that, no, it is Lola, I called that I was coming to see her. And then Toby also called me to say he got the same confirmation. So that was, after the confirmation I got, that was a further verification from a friend as well.
So you were sure beyond all doubt.
100%.
And you, when it came, how sure were you?
So, yes, when it came, I was ready.
You knew before then?
It took me a bit of time to know, but we were friends. We continued to be friends. All the way university, he kept a tab on me, like he said. He made sure I would always come over to the house to meet his sisters. He would come over. But years passed, he made sure that he was there. And when it was time, it was a time in my life when I was confused about who is going to be my partner. And one of those days, I went over to his family house, and that day was wearing white like an angel. So I call him my angel today, because that very day was in a white
up and down.
And as I entered the sitting room, it was just like, this is my angel. I think that was how
you knew.
It was clear to me. However, 2 years before that time, I was in another relationship. And the same Mr. Kimbo, my mother, told me that, you know, it has come to my spirit that Wole is your husband.
Wow.
Yes, right there in our sitting room, 2 years before I was convinced. And I told her, no.
I already have
Wole.
somebody.
One, Wole is my friend, and I know that I think he's looking to travel abroad. So, and then I have somebody because you don't like this new guy. That was what I told her. But then she kept quiet. She didn't see anything, and she continued to pray. And I stayed in that relationship for another 2 years before everything went.
Peanuts.
Yeah. And then I visited him, and then I saw the angel. And my eyes opened, and I saw the light.
And you people have been married now for 16 years.
Yes.
And Wole was telling me it's been a very, very, very good marriage. He even went as far as saying that you people, you don't know how it works, but you're not the ones that quarrel. Lola, tell me about it. What's the secret of 16 years without quarreling?
The thing is, I don't know, it has this effect on me. If I quarrel with him, I won't sleep. I think that's the challenge. So we rather talk about it, we rather communicate, we rather discuss it. And I think another thing is, we've been friends from when we were teenagers. So it's like we've always been together. So it's so difficult to fight with Wole. Like, I won't sleep. I think that's the bottom line. So when there is something I don't understand, I come to him and we discuss it. And I know that he will put my interest first. And I would also put his interest first. So we're not conflicting. And then we just reason it out. So as we reason it out, without you putting yourself first, everybody comes to a common point. I think that has actually helped us.
Well, it was the secret.
So I was going to jump in.
I saw you trying to jump in, so I pulled you in.
Yes, there's something she said that I think is very key to how we've had a very good and harmonious relationship. And it's about putting the other person's interest first. Let me be very clear. I know that Lola will always put my interest and the children's interest first, 100% of the time. So because of that, in any situation, I try to watch out for her interest and put her interest first as well, because I feel if nobody is watching out for her interest, then she will be exposed.
Because all she's doing is watching out for her interest.
So with that, I don't have to play mind games with her. And if she's telling me something, I'm not trying to read between the lines to see, or is this what she's trying to say? You know? So it's communication between the two of us is very open and smooth I don't know how to describe, without any hitches, because I know that she's always got my back all the time. So I have to protect her in every situation as well.
So you people have a job on your hands. You need to help other couples. Don't you think so?
We try.
Or you enjoy yourself so much you don't have time.
No, we do mentor a few people. actually. We've not really like
Take it as
structure it.
Maybe God is calling you
as a mission,
through this conversation.
Something with
You know what? I'm putting you on the edge. I don't want to put you.
No,
I just want to say that it's been a pleasure sitting down with you, hearing Wole's story, and getting to meet Lola, and just wrapping it up in this way. Wole and Lola, I'll give you a chance in 15 seconds. Look into the camera. I'll start with Lola. And no, let me start with Wole. Wole, look into the camera. Your last word in just a few sentences to our viewers before we wrap up.
Okay. So to our viewers, let me tell you this as we close. Don't limit yourself to what you have in your bank account, to what you have around you, because your God is far bigger than that. I'm telling you this from my own personal experience, that I always try to hit at a higher weight than my normal weight. And I've seen God coming through for me time and time again. So you need to have that faith, that boldness to step out and trust God to support you and to carry you. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Lola, what would you want to say? Anything from your heart?
Yeah, thank you. I would speak to mothers. The impact of a mother cannot be overemphasized. I always say that the mother's assignment is first to bring the children to Christ. That is the number one assignment of the mother, to look out for the family. So I'll speak to every woman, every mother listening to me, whether biological or you're a Christian in the fold. Every action, every step you take has an impact on that 13-year-old, that 12-year-old. Is an opportunity for you to sow seeds, and those seeds would grow and they will bring forth a lot of fruits that will affect the next generation. So don't stop teaching, don't stop telling them about Christ, don't stop passing the message on.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Wole and Lola Toriola, for coming and gracing this show. We've been talking to Wole and Lola Toriola, and we've been sharing about Wole's journey in the corporate world as well as their journey at home, and we have been so blessed. And I want to thank our viewers for joining us this week. We'll see you same time, same station next week. Bye. Please like this video and leave a comment below. Let's know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell button and share this video with somebody else.